Ok, pessoal, ao vivo. Meu projetinho de hoje é associar duas coisas, né? Que acompanhar a acoplagem, né, da Crew-1 lá na ISS, que vai ocorrer lá cerca de 9 horas da noite. Mas meu foco principal não é isso, né? Não é exatamente acompanhar uma acoplagem, é porque às vezes coisas interessantes acontecem, né, no momento que a Crew está chegando, né, perto da ISS. Depois eu vou botar um vídeo aí para rolar de uma captura, né, é, é, o ano de 2018, se eu não me engano, de um objeto estranho, né, passando por trás da ISS. Paralelo a isso, deixa eu tirar aqui paralelo a isso, eu estou também aqui com a webcam lá na rua, né? Com monitoramento do céu. Agora eu vou focar aqui numa nuvem bem legal. Aí eu vou alternando, né, entre a Crew, a acoplagem da Crew e o monitoramento aqui dos céus de Pelotas. Então, voltamos aqui para a NASA. Eu vou ativar o som do desktop. Mas estou aqui, pessoal, qualquer coisa só comentar no chat aí que eu que eu respondo, ok?
A Pet Love tem tudo que o seu pet precisa. E o melhor? Você compra online e recebe em casa. Acesse petlove.com.br ou baixe o aplicativo. E o melhor? Você compra online e recebe em casa. Acesse petlove.com.br ou baixe o aplicativo.
Congratulations on that still.
Yeah, that was a little stiff getting them in. We had to get Ike to hold one side. The bag was kind of bunching in on itself, and then Shannon was doing the same on the other while Soichi wiggled it in.
Copy, yeah, we saw it. Thanks for the great video.
Yeah, hardest part of the operation.
Thank you, Soichi and Shannon.
And they're giving you a big thumbs up.
Yeah, we see it. Thanks so much.
Hey, so Jay, in case you didn't get the word, but we will be a go for the broadcast event at, I think it's 21:30 or somewhere around there.
Copy. Yep, we did get that word, and we're tracking that. Yeah, you're welcome to keep the floater cam, Velcroed on the vehicle somewhere. We may still power it off ahead of the event, though.
Yeah, that sounds good. I'll just Velcro it out of the way for now. And then just a quick question on the event. Is there a time on it? In other words, are you looking for 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 30 seconds?
Nope, there's no time constraint. Up to you.
Okay, copy that. We'll put a plan together.
Dragon SpaceX for timeline.
And go ahead for timeline.
Yeah, two small requests. One is, since we're in sunlight and you have the floater camera out, you could give us a view.
Vou dar uma diminuída aqui na janela do céu para enquadrar numa nuvem. Vamos ver como é que se comporta aqui.
Yeah, we currently don't have ground station coverage, but we should have it here in a few minutes. I will let you know when we get
Aumentar o
that.
quadro.
About 4.5 minutes from now.
Okay, yeah, we'll see. We're going to be heading over. It looks like New Zealand when that pass comes up. So
Aproximar melhor.
as well, and we'll make sure we'll have the camera pointing out the window at that time.
Nunca se sabe, né? Quando é que se vai ter bônus.
Will begin at 21:38, and you'll have about 19 minutes. So, as long as it's shorter than that.
I think you can safely assume it's going to be a lot shorter than that.
Copy all.
Nem sinal da Ditacuja ainda, não sei em que momento ela vai ser visível, talvez lá pelas 6, 7 horas. Um reflexo se formando ali, que legal. Se era outro aqui, urgente, ao vivo, OVNI se aproximando. Isso aqui já aconteceu 2 ou 3 vezes, já desde que eu estou olhando. forma-se aquele reflexo, depois ele se divide. Isso tem a ver com a rotação, né? Com a mudança de posição da ISS com relação ao Sol. Exatamente como está acontecendo o reflexo, não sei, mas é um reflexo. E se foi o dito cujo, né? Isso aqui, se tu procurar, tu vai achar inúmeros vídeos aí no YouTube do suposto OVNI que se aproxima da ISS e depois se afasta, né? Some. Mas não estamos aqui para isso, né, pessoal? Não queremos sensacionalismo, o negócio é os UFOs reais, né? Eu já estou aqui na agulha aqui do meu canal um vídeo daquele OVNI que foi capturado aqui. Daqui a pouco eu boto a rodar aqui. Eu ainda não tive a oportunidade de testar convenientemente o modo aqui de captura noturna, devido a tempo nublado, né, chuvoso, mas me pareceu ser bem razoável o nível de brilho, né, das estrelas, né, a sensibilidade da câmera parece boa para isso, então vou usar em projetos futuros aí para filmar ISS, Starlink, alguns eventos, né, da Lua. Então espero seguidamente estar vendo isso, né?
And Dragon SpaceX, we see the view. Thank you. Looks amazing.
Yeah, Jay, looks amazing from up here too.
This beautiful view coming to you live from space on Crew Dragon Resilience. Our Crew-1 crew giving us an amazing look outside the window, the very same view they're getting right now on their way to the International Space Station.
Olha que coisa mais linda.
And as you heard them call out, this is a floater camera that
Existe terraplanista nesse mundo ainda, cara, brincadeira. Só se a NASA tivesse milhares de designers em Photoshops, porque o que não falta são evidências, né? Então, aliás, não quero nem falar sobre isso, porque eu acho cúmulo. Acho cúmulo o negócio de terraplanismo, então tô fora.
Great words from the crew to all of you watching, enjoying this view with them. Again, this is a floater camera on the vehicle. It's not stationary, so this is a camera that they can move around inside of the cabin. And it almost feels like we're looking through their eyes right now.
I love this, and I love what they just said. Oh, I thought we were going a little bit back into the cabin, but these views are so amazing. I love how Soichi Noguchi put it. Crew 1 is you one. So, you know, they said we're all there in spirit, and I really do feel like they've prioritized making this a mission for everyone. They even said Crew 1 for all, or all for Crew 1, Crew 1 for all. So it really is amazing to get to be part of this.
Yeah, and it almost feels like we're looking out the window of an airplane, except for it's a spacecraft.
Yes, except you'd be floating in microgravity. Seatbelt signs are off. There's also, you probably heard them discussing an upcoming broadcast event, which we're really excited about. We hope that the crew will give us some pretty cool views inside the spacecraft and maybe tell us what they've been up to. And that is coming up at 1:38 p.m. Pacific time, so don't miss it. Stick around. This view on the right side of your camera, actually from the International Space Station. Let's see where the space station is right now. It looks like it is flying north of New Zealand, about 268 statute miles above us all, and Dragon is on its way.
Cool.
And we continue just to watch these views, both from the space station and then this one from Crew Dragon. Just fascinating, just getting to be part of, you know, like you said, seeing it a little bit through their eyes. We're really along for the ride. It's very interesting and just fascinating to think that we're able to get camera footage from space.
Yeah, and something really interesting, you mentioned how fast Dragon was moving through space, but it almost looks like they're at a standstill because of how far they are from Earth. So
Yeah.
just really interesting how fast they...
I think you're getting a good view of New Zealand right now.
Yeah, it looks incredible. Yeah, we definitely are getting a great view.
And as you heard them mention, they are also getting a view of New Zealand. They're still below and a bit behind the International Space Station, but the two are getting ever closer in preparation for docking tonight. And Jesse, as you mentioned, Dragon speed, it does look like very serene and definitely not like it's moving as fast as it is. But as a matter of fact, it is flying about 17,108 miles per hour. So that's relative to Earth. That's 7,648 meters per second.
Yeah, that's pretty fast. But even at that speed, they got a beautiful, smooth-looking view of Earth. And New Zealand, it sounds like.
That sounds like it. I know there's only a couple of windows on Crew Dragon, so I'm wondering if they're all taking turns switching out who gets to look out the window at what time.
Right.
I know that's a popular pastime of astronauts aboard the International Space Station as well. We have the cupola window, which is sort of like a big bay window, and it looks directly down on Earth. So a lot of the pictures that you see from the International Space Station come from the cupola. It's also a great location for us to monitor the arrival of vehicles. We had a great video come out after DM2 docking where you could see Chris Cassidy was in the cupola watching DM2 arrive, and so potentially, you know, we may see something similar today, somebody looking out the cupola as Crew Dragon comes in.
What a sight that must be to just watch another spacecraft floating to come and join you on board station.
And even more exciting that it's your friends,
Yeah,
you know,
right.
the people that you work with and have trained with before. So I know that they are anxiously awaiting their arrival.
Essa imagem merece até uma música, né, de fundo. Deixa eu ver.
Direct text size for awareness. We just got that one.
And you're quite welcome, and we're happy to do it again.
Right now would be to power off them. So your gate, and once you turn it back on, just the head front.
Hey, copy, and you're powering it off. You can pop it back up.
Probably will be made right off. Unless
But what is it?
verbatim, that's just an example.
That was pretty cool getting to see those views, and I heard him say they would bring the camera back anytime there's something they wanted to see. I think I always want to see it.
I know.
So those views were from the floater camera, as you heard them discussing. And they have the ability to stow that floater camera if it's turned on, and then put it away until after the on board coming up at 1 p.m. Pacific time. Looking forward to that. Good job, Team Poster.
And it sounds like we got a little ready for that broadcast live, so really looking forward to that broadcast.
We are still standing by, monitoring all the communication, reappearing, providing information as much as we can. Hope you'll stick with us. We're going to look at these beautiful views from the International Space Station as Crew Dragon continues its journey to the International Space Station.
Então é isso aí, pessoal. Vou botar aqui a rodar o vídeo. Já está no ponto aqui do dia que
realmente
aquela
não
anomalia.
consigo saber a função que poderia ter essa peça. Parece um anel de redação.
Começar do começo.
Olá amigos, vamos a mais um update exclusivo com a missão de reabastecimento da ISS, a número 16 da SpaceX. Foi aquela missão que o primeiro módulo acabou se desestabilizando e pousando no mar e caindo. E assistindo aqui eu achei essa peça aqui, que eu não consegui identificar, momentos antes dele perder o controle. Eu, honestamente, não consigo saber a função que poderia ter essa peça. Parece um anel de redação, mas enfim, deve se desprender várias peças nos desacoplamentos, e embora você pareça estar sofrendo um arrasto, ela parece ter soltado há pouco, né? Quando o booster está voltando, e em seguida ele se desestabiliza e vem a tombar. E casualmente, repassando os casos relatados ao MUFON, encontrei de um sujeito que acompanhou a acoplagem transmitida ao vivo e achou esse objeto interessante. Passou o link, né, porque até então eu não tinha visto. E eu não sou de ficar na primeira, né, eu gosto de confirmar. Fui lá no vídeo original. E realmente esse objeto estranho está passando ali, né? A SpaceX não é a primeira vez, né, que surpreende, né? Se você olhar o vídeo original, tem outros pontos brancos passando em vários sentidos, menores, obviamente. Eu não me detive neles, né? Esse objeto eu não consegui classificar como reflexo. Para mim, ele é real, está na cena, está passando por trás do módulo. Sendo assim, é um dos vídeos mais impactantes parece que eles estão bem mais ousados, né? O contato realmente está acontecendo. E o incrível nisso é o silêncio, né, da NASA. Eles não dizem uma palavra a respeito. E não bastasse esse primeiro objeto, que passou a 1 minuto e alguma coisa, a 1 segundo. Eu tive cuidado de ver se não eram ângulos diferentes, câmeras diferentes. Mas não, o objeto passa numa posição diferente, né? Dessa vez favoreceu ali a visão das luzes, que aparentemente alternam. Isso se fosse um objeto atrás de um vidro emitindo um reflexo, que objeto seria, né? Dentro da ISS emitindo luzes. Então, para mim, inequivocamente, é um dos vídeos mais claros de contato. Não podemos chamar isso aí de luzinha, né? São um objeto de grandes proporções, passando relativamente próximo. Então é isso aí, pessoal. Não poderia deixar de fazer um update exclusivo com esse acontecimento, né? São vários objetos anômalos nessa missão. E eu ainda quero ver o vídeo na íntegra, ver o que mais pode se contar.
Pessoal, essa é uma das razões, não, a razão principal, né, de eu estar atento aqui, é porque aparentemente esses objetos têm curiosidade também, né, com relação ao que o ser humano anda fazendo aí no espaço. Aquele objeto eu não consegui identificar. Houve um cara aí que chamou aquilo ali de luzes de uma cidade lá embaixo, só que parece que não, né? Errou feio. E é mais um dos bons registros aí que nós temos, né, de UFOs, né? Por enquanto nem sinal. Vamos dar uma olhadinha lá no meu céu. Tudo tranquilo.
If you're just now joining us, you are tuning in to the live webcast for our NASA SpaceX Crew-1 mission, carrying our 4 crew members on board Dragon Resilience today, making their way to the International Space Station. Yesterday we had an on-time liftoff at 7:27 p.m. Eastern Time, and today we are through 3 of the 5 major burns. We did have an additional phase burn earlier this morning, which wasn't a major burn, but is one of those burns that is contingent in case we need it to keep us on course. And now next coming up will be the transfer burn, followed by the co-elliptic burn to finish out those 5 burns. We also have a broadcast coming up with our 4 crew members on board Resilience at 1:38 p.m. So coming up here in about a little over a couple of hours, or a little under a couple of hours for that broadcast.
Yeah, and it's been a really good day so far. As you mentioned, everything is continuing to go smoothly for Dragon today and our crew. We also got some beautiful views outside of the spacecraft, and now these views coming at you live from the International Space Station. We're also still taking Ask NASA questions. So if you have one, just use the hashtag AskNASA with your question on Twitter, and we will try to get that answered for you. And this one comes from Bev. Thanking the crews for the beautiful view. I echo that. And asking if they're taking up supplies to the space station, such as food, fresh fruit, vegetables, and other things. So I don't believe there are. They are taking up crew supplies, and they each have 12 meals for this journey, as well as some snacks. So there is that food going up, but this is in contrast to a cargo resupply mission where we would have a lot of food or potentially sometimes vegetables and fruits going up. That's always a really special time for the astronauts because they don't get to keep a lot of fresh fruit and vegetables. It takes a little bit for the cargo crafts to reach the space station, so sometimes there's a little bit packed in, and it's always really cool to see them either playing with their food. Sometimes you'll see them floating the fruit in the air. It's pretty neat.
We've got another question. How long will the docking process take? That's a really good question because that's coming up here later this evening. How long exactly does this take? It is a very specific process. It does take a few hours. Can you give us more details, Leah?
Yeah, so after we complete those 5 major burns, we move into we're out of the rendezvous period, we move into the approach initiation period. And so we'll do an approach initiation burn, and we'll be going through a few checkpoints during that time. And so once we reach that last checkpoint, which is waypoint 2, we'll only be 20 meters away from the space station. And these are all very precise movements, as you have to be when you're maneuvering a spacecraft, but especially around another spacecraft. And so from the time the spacecraft reaches waypoint 2 until the time it docks with the International Space Station, that takes about 5 minutes. And once it docks, it will first enter a phase called soft capture. And it will, the soft capture ring will retract and bring the vehicle in so that the hooks can drive and give it that hard capture hold. That process itself takes under 15 minutes, about 13 we're looking at. And then afterward, we'll have a series of leak checks. We'll have to pressurize the vestibule, which is the area between the hatches. And then the crew will also be doffing their suits. So there's a lot to step through. And from hard dock, those hooks driving until hatch opening, that takes a couple of hours. So we'll be around for all of that tonight as well.
Yeah, very exciting. It's a lot of maneuvers, but again, Dragon is autonomous, so the crew members just have to, stay on board and wait till they finally dock.
This question coming from Kyle: has there ever been anyone alone on the space station? If so, how long? That would be so lonely.
I know.
And I'm glad to say that no one has ever been alone on the International Space Station. The fewest number of people we've had on station is 2. And now we have 3, and we'll be welcoming 4 more today, so we'll have a crew of 7.
Got another question. How do the astronauts sleep in the ISS, and do they have beds?
That's fun. That's a fun question because it's not really like a bed like we think of on Earth. You can't really lay down without gravity. And so what they do have are crew quarters, and they're little closet-sized almost spaces where the astronauts can tack up a sleeping bag, and they sleep kind of on the wall. They have the option to put their arms, restrain their arms if they would like. Otherwise, your arms kind of float up in front of you. You might look a little bit like a zombie, but some of them can strap their arms down if they like, and they sleep in that sleeping bag essentially.
Wow, that must be such an interesting feeling. Like, you're very used to, laying down and relaxing your body, but there's no gravity, so they're kind of just floating and just sleeping with their, almost standing up and sleeping with their eyes closed.
I know. It's from some of them, I've heard it's the best sleep that they've ever had.
Really?
I think it would take me some getting used to, though, but...
Huh. So, to get good sleep, become an astronaut and go to space.
This question, what's the temperature inside Crew Dragon and can the astronauts adjust it? And yes, we've actually been listening to them discussing that for the past several hours.
Yeah, they've been checking in with the core and having the core adjust the temperature here and there through their sleep period, through when they're actually active and moving around a little bit. They're able to change that temperature inside of the cabin.
And last we heard it was about 75 degrees Fahrenheit inside the cabin.
Is it true that Bob Behnken's wife is going to be able to go to space on the Crew-2 mission next spring? And the answer to that is yes.
Yes, that is true. Megan MacArthur is an astronaut and will be flying next spring on Crew-2. Very interesting is that she'll also be flying on the same spacecraft as Bob Behnken did. He flew on Crew Dragon Endeavour on the DM2 mission, and that vehicle is now being refurbished and it will be flown as Crew-2. So I'm not sure what the seating arrangement is yet, but that would be pretty cool if she was in his seat as well. We'll have to stand by and see.
That's actually really amazing that both of them are astronauts. Both of them will share the same vehicle. Like, how many times does that ever happen? That's
absolutely, and in such a close time period, and with a brand new vehicle.
Right.
You know, they both had former experience with space shuttles, but for them both to get to fly on Crew Dragon as well in such a short time period, I know that has to be exciting.
So cool. For those of you watching online on YouTube, take a look at the description below the video. There you'll find the new link for our Crew-1 rendezvous and docking phase. We'll be continuing live coverage at this new location shortly.
And if you're watching on NASA TV, don't go anywhere because we are still going to be here and we are still standing by listening for information and sharing everything we know with you. So you won't notice a thing at all if you're watching on NASA TV, and our coverage will continue.
Um bonito reflexo avermelhado ali no canto direito, né? Parece um hexágono, um círculo. Mas é só um reflexo, né, pessoal? Se fossem outras analistas por aí diriam que são barras paralelas. No caso, um hexágono fantasma. Se eu não me engano, numa imagem anterior eu já vi flares, né, ocorrendo ao longe, né? O módulo tem luzes, né, piscantes. Então pode ser que já em determinado momento seja isso que eu tenha visto, né? Isso aqui eu chamo de lens flare de respeito, né? Sol despontando. Despontando no visor, né, da filmadora, né? Porque já só não estava na mira.
For those of you watching online on YouTube, take a look at the description below the video. There you'll find the new link for our Crew-1 rendezvous and docking phase. We'll be continuing live coverage at that new location shortly.
And if you're watching on NASA TV, you won't notice a thing. So coverage will continue. Stay right there. And if you're watching on YouTube, click that link. We'll be right back.
Did a very nice job. The spacecraft of this century is not just for America, but this is an international corporation, and all the other people around the world have a chance to ride on this Crew Dragon. So this is a new era.
So as you can see, a lot of talent on Crew Dragon today. Right now, all of them are getting much needed sleep. All of their talents will come in handy tomorrow when they dock with the International Space Station and become a member of Expedition 64. In the meantime, we're going to be providing coverage and recaps throughout the night. But actually, we do need to take a break, and if you're watching this on YouTube on the SpaceX channel, we're going to have to switch over to a new link due to the length of this live coverage. So if you are watching on YouTube on SpaceX's channel, check the description down below for a new link and go to that and we'll pick it up from there. And if you're on NASA TV,
you don't have to go anywhere.
Just stay
We're
tuned.
continuing our coverage.
Great, yeah.
did a very nice job. The spacecraft of this century is not just for America, but this is an international corporation, and all the other people around the world have a chance to ride on this Crew Dragon. So this is a new era.
So as you can see, a lot of talent on Crew Dragon today. Right now, all of them are getting much needed sleep. All of their talents will come in handy tomorrow when they dock with the International Space Station and become a member of Expedition 64. In the meantime, we're going to be providing coverage and recaps throughout the night. But actually, we do need to take a break, and if you're watching this on YouTube on the SpaceX channel, we're going to have to switch over to a new link due to the length of this live coverage. So if you are watching on YouTube on SpaceX's channel, check the description down below for a new link, and go to that and we'll pick it up from there. And if you're on NASA TV,
you don't have to go anywhere.
Just stay
We're
tuned.
continuing our coverage.
Great, yeah.
Crew Dragon Resilience on their way to the International Space Station. Right now, they have formally entered their sleep period. We haven't heard some comms for quite some time. They might have actually gotten a little jump on their sleep period, but they'll be asleep now for the next 8 hours before some of those next major milestones come up. In the meantime, let's recap the mission thus far. Launch day preparations started early for our crew members about 4 hours prior to launch on Sunday. The crew completed their final medical checks before joining the SpaceX team to get into their spacesuits. After suit up in the NASA Operations and Checkout building, the crew walked out, waving for some final farewells to their family and friends waiting outside. Next destination for the crew was the launch pad. It was about a 20-minute Tesla ride from pad 39A, where the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon spacecraft were waiting for them. 2.5 hours prior to launch, the crew ingressed or entered the Crew Dragon spacecraft, walking over that crew access arm, getting a last look out of those windows at Florida's Space Coast, and heading into the White Room and the vehicle. 40 minutes prior to launch, that crew access arm retracted, and at T-minus 35 minutes before liftoff, the launch escape system was armed, allowing the Crew Dragon to escape the Falcon 9 on the launch pad or upon descent should there be any anomaly with the vehicle. But it was not needed, as we saw a smooth ride into orbit on Sunday. With 35 minutes to go until launch, propellant load began, filling the fuel tanks for those 9 Merlin M1D engines. And just 5 minutes before launch, Dragon entered terminal count, meaning its onboard computers took control of the vehicle.
And at 7:27 p.m. Eastern Time, the 9 Merlin M1D engines ignited, and we had a night liftoff of Falcon 9 from Space Launch Complex 39A. This mission is the second time humans have rode Dragon into orbit. With Falcon 9's first stage at full power, our crew began their journey to the International Space Station. Just after the T+9 minute mark, the first stage of Falcon 9 landed on the drone ship Just Read the Instructions, stationed out in the Atlantic Ocean. And only a couple minutes after that, we had a spacecraft separation where we saw the Dragon capsule Resilience finally flying free.
About 45 minutes after liftoff, Dragon executed the phase burn, the first of 5 major burns required to raise Dragon's orbit and position it for approach to the International Space Station. Our initial orbit after Dragon separated from Falcon 9 was 210 kilometers by 190 kilometers. Those values represent the orbit apogee, or the highest point over the Earth, and the perigee, or the lowest point. That means the orbit isn't a perfect circle. We're going to see Dragon raise its orbit using the Draco thrusters over the coming hours as it chases down the space station. Now, once the crew wakes up in the morning, we'll have a number of events that will eventually lead to docking targeted for 8 p.m. Pacific time today. However, there are still a couple of milestones to occur while the crew in Dragon is still asleep. Before the Dragon crew wakes up, we'll execute the boost burn and the close co-elliptic burn.
The second of our 5 burns, the boost burn, is targeted to start at 8:20 a.m. Pacific time, and it'll last a little more than 90 seconds. After this burn, our crew will be in an orbit where Dragon's apogee, or its highest point, will be 10 kilometers lower than the station. We'll have just 3 major burns left before we get to integrated operations and Dragon's final approach. The third burn, the second burn that'll happen while the crew is still asleep, is the close co-elliptic burn. That occurs at approximately 9:02 a.m. Pacific time. This close co-elliptic burn will place Dragon on an orbit roughly co-elliptic with the space station. That means we're maintaining an orbit roughly 10 kilometers lower than the space station's orbit the entire way around the Earth. That's in contrast to only being 10 kilometers lower than the station during Dragon's apogee, or the highest point of its orbit, which is achieved by the boost burn we just talked about. The close burn will be another long firing of Dragon's Draco thrusters, with the burn expected to last just over 10 minutes.
At about 9:10 a.m. Pacific time, it'll be time for our 4 crew members to finally wake up. About an hour after they wake up, they'll be able to enjoy some breakfast. At 2:45 p.m. Pacific, we'll execute the 4th maneuver known as the transfer burn. This is where we're raising Dragon's apogee, or the highest point in its orbit, to just 2.5 kilometers lower than the station. Then we'll round everything out with a final co-elliptic burn at 3:31 p.m. Pacific to once again maintain a constant orbit lower than the station, this time at just 2.5 kilometers. This will be a shorter burn lasting just over 30 seconds. Then we'll get into the approach initiation and the final stages of Dragon's rendezvous with the space station. This is also when we start integrated operations between the Dragon control team here in Hawthorne and the space station flight controllers in Mission Control Houston. The teams will transition to integrated operations roughly 45 minutes prior to approach initiation.
During that approach, SpaceX flight controllers will work in tandem with the NASA team in Houston to activate and test out a number of systems on Dragon, including bidirectional communications with the station using the Common Communications for Visiting Vehicle system known as C2V2. It sets up a data stream from Dragon to the station, and gives another path for Dragon telemetry to come to the ground, and gives an additional command capability to astronauts aboard the station. They'll also maneuver Dragon to the proper attitude and initialize the navigation sensors used for the methodical approach to the station.
At approximately 6:30 p.m. Pacific, Draco thrusters on Dragon will fire for the approach initiation burn, where Dragon is just about 2.5 kilometers below the station and 7 kilometers behind it. This will swing Dragon up until it's at about 400 meters, or about a quarter mile, directly below the station. This maneuver will also move Dragon inside one of 2 checkpoints around the station that requires a set of go, no-go poles with the different control teams. The first checkpoint is called the Approach Ellipsoid, or as you might hear it called, the AE. It's an imaginary shape measuring 4 kilometers by 2 kilometers by 2 kilometers, essentially a large 3-dimensional oval. Before Dragon is given permission to move inside the approach ellipsoid, the capsule is configured to be on what is known as a 24-hour safe trajectory. This means that if Dragon lost all control to its thrusters, it would be at least 24 hours before its trajectory would move inside the approach ellipsoid.
And at about 7 p.m. Pacific time, the NASA and SpaceX teams will conduct a go-no-go poll to move Dragon inside the keep-out sphere. It's another checkpoint that consists of an imaginary sphere around the station with a radius of 200 meters. Flight controllers use this to monitor all arriving and departing vehicles. This is another chance to confirm all the guidance, navigation, and control systems are working correctly on Dragon before moving closer to the station. It carries a similar requirement on the orbital trajectory that if Dragon were to somehow lose control of its thrusters, it would be safe for 4 orbits or about 6 hours rather than the 24 hours required to enter the approach ellipsoid. Once Dragon arrives at 400 meters below the station, it will be at what is known as waypoint 0. It's the first checkpoint during our approach. The vehicle can hold here at 400 meters, but if all of its systems check out, we can continue the approach to waypoint 1.
Dragon's move from waypoint 0 to waypoint 1 will swing it up and out in front of the station, arriving at a distance of approximately 220 meters. At this point, it will be on what we call the docking axis, which essentially means it's directly in front of the docking port. The crew are headed for the forwardmost port on the station, the Node 2 forward port. This is where Dragon docked just over a year ago on the Demo 1 mission, and where one of 2 international docking adapters is located, installed for these new commercial spacecraft flights, as well as any other future spacecraft that will use the international docking standard.
Once Dragon is only 20 meters away, at waypoint 2, the spacecraft focuses on aligning its docking system with the International Docking Adapter. At that point, you may hear the call-out CHOP, which stands for Crew Hands-Off Point. It occurs a little less than 30 seconds before that physical docking. At this point, any aborts will have to be done automatically by Dragon.
And the moment we've all been waiting for, when our crew arrives at the space station, Dragon will fly in and make contact with the IDA, International Docking Adapter, giving us what we call a soft capture. The soft capture ring then retracts until sensors indicate it's time for 12 hooks to drive in place to give us a hard capture and firmly secure Dragon to its new home on the space station. The Dragon crew, or the station crew, namely Kate Rubins, will manually pressurize the vestibule, or the area in between the Dragon hatch and the station hatch. Meanwhile, the umbilicals will provide power and audio and data connections from the station to the Dragon, and they'll be put in place. Then it's time for leak checks and the hatch opening, which will currently timeline to come about 2 hours following docking.
We can see Crew Dragon's doing a lot of work, has a lot of busy morning ahead, but even in space, it still takes 2 to tango and make this docking happen. The International Space Station is also a factor in the mix for this dance-like approach operation. So let's head over to Mission Control Houston for an update from NASA's Sandra Jones.
Thanks, Michael and Gary. The teams here in Mission Control Houston are continuing to prepare for docking and Crew Dragon arrival. Ground teams are still being led by Flight Director Zeb Scoville during this Orbit 1 shift. Teams in Houston are working out of the blue flight control room and are rotating and alternating flight control rooms from shift to shift to prevent contact between teams between their shifts. At this hour, the current International Space Station crew, which includes NASA astronaut Kate Rubins and Roscosmos cosmonauts Sergei Ryzhikov and Sergei Kitsverkov, are awake and have begun the exciting day ahead of them. NASA astronaut Kate Rubins is currently working on some science sample collections specifically related to the Sally Ride EarthCam, which stands for Earth Knowledge Acquired by Middle School Students. EarthCam is a NASA educational outreach program that enables students, teachers, and the public to learn about Earth from the unique vantage point of space. During Sally Ride EarthCam missions, middle school students around the world request images of specific locations on Earth. The entire collection of Sally Ride EarthCam images is available in a searchable Sally Ride EarthCam image archive. This image collection and accompanying activities are just one way the International Space Station engages students and educators around the world and gives them the opportunity to see the world through an astronaut's eyes. After Rubins wraps up EarthCam, she will move into her midday meal. Then around 6 a.m. Central Time, she will begin setting up cameras to capture the historic Crew-1 arrival and hatch opening between Crew Dragon and station scheduled for just after midnight Tuesday morning. Around 9 a.m. Central Time today, Rubins has a rendezvous conference with ground controllers to review Crew Dragon procedures in preparation for this exciting milestone. Afterwards, Rubins will get some sleep and wake up around 8 p.m. Central Time. At last, it will be the moment we've all been waiting for. Rubins will be in the cupola of the International Space Station as Crew Dragon begins its approach initiation burn to bring it below the station and then in front of the station for the final approach before docking. Once the hooks are driven to form a hard mate between the Dragon and station, which is scheduled for 10 p.m. Central Time, Rubins will then work with the Crew-1 astronauts of Michael Hopkins, Victor Glover, Shannon Walker, and Soichi Noguchi to equalize pressure to ensure there is a tight seal between Crew Dragon and the space station before they open the hatch and greet their new crew members who will become members of the Expedition 64 crew at the time they float through the station's Harmony module. This will more than double the population of this space station and bring the crew count on board to 7. Everything's still a go on the station side for an on-time docking. For now, back over to you, Gary and Michael.
All right, thank you, Sandra. It's so great to hear that while we have this extended docking, right, so now we're doing a 27.5-hour rendezvous with the International Space Station. They were able to squeeze Kate a full day of science on board the International Space Station. She's up and doing all kinds of great things aboard, and of course she'll get plenty of sleep before having to wake up and start having to do some of those rendezvous operations from the station side, monitoring the approach of Crew Dragon. It's a few hours until we get to that point. Of course, now we're in the sleep period for the crew. All 4 crew members aboard the Crew Dragon are currently in a sleep period. They're scheduled to wake up sometime shortly after 9 a.m. Pacific time. We're going to continue our coverage throughout that time, answering your questions on social media and providing occasional updates. If you have any questions, just submit them using the hashtag AskNASA. We'll be back with you shortly. though, on the International Space Station. She had one of those shorter gaps for long-duration missions, some of the shortest that I've at least had in my career. The last time she was on the station was just a few short years ago, 4 years in 2016. She was on board the station for her first long-duration mission. This is her second, and in just 4 years, she turned that around, and now she's on board conducting a lot more science. All right, this next one comes from Gecko Mom. Does the Dragon crew sleep sitting in their chairs, Michael?
They do. They do. You know, normally you wouldn't want to sleep in your chair all night, but these chairs are different. They come in lots of different sizes. They have different widths, different lengths. Even the footrests have different lengths based on kind of like a small, medium, large size. So we make sure that for each seat, it's customized to each astronaut, and it's actually very comfortable. So yes, they are currently in their seats sleeping, and then when they wake up, they'll continue to stay in those seats for the rest of the mission. Maybe a question for Carly: is crew one still in this flight? The answer is no. It's actually operational, and Gary kind of mentioned, you know, the future of this crew mission series.
That's right. In fact, demo.
Entrar. Olá amigos, vamos a mais um update exclusivo com a missão de reabastecimento da ISS, a número 16 da SpaceX. Foi aquela missão que o primeiro módulo acabou se desestabilizando e pousando no mar e caindo. E assistindo aqui eu achei essa peça aqui, que eu não consegui identificar, momentos antes dele perder o controle. Eu, honestamente, não consigo saber a função que poderia ter essa peça. Parece um anel de redação, mas enfim, deve se desprender várias peças nos desacoplamentos, e embora você pareça estar sofrendo um arrasto, ela parece ter soltado há pouco, né? Quando o booster está voltando, e em seguida ele se desestabiliza e vem a tombar. E casualmente, repassando os casos relatados a MUFON, encontrei um sujeito que acompanhou a acoplagem transmitida ao vivo e achou esse objeto interessante. Passou o link, né, porque até então eu não tinha visto. E eu não sou de ficar na primeira, né, eu gosto de confirmar. Fui lá no vídeo original. E realmente esse objeto estranho está passando ali, né? A SpaceX não é a primeira vez, né, que surpreende, né? Se você olhar o vídeo original, tem outros pontos brancos passando em vários sentidos, menores, obviamente. Eu não me detive neles, né? Esse objeto eu não consegui classificar como reflexo. Para mim, ele é real, está na cena, está passando por trás do módulo. Sendo assim, é um dos vídeos mais impactantes parece que eles estão bem mais ousados, né? O contato realmente está acontecendo. E o incrível nisso é o silêncio, né, da NASA. Eles não dizem uma palavra a respeito. E não bastasse esse primeiro objeto, que passou a 1 minuto e alguma coisa, a um segundo. Eu tive cuidado de ver se não eram ângulos diferentes, câmeras diferentes. Mas não, o objeto passa numa posição diferente, né? Dessa vez favoreceu ali a visão das luzes, que aparentemente alternam. E se fosse um objeto atrás de um vidro emitindo um reflexo, que objeto seria, né? Dentro da ISS emitindo luzes. Então, para mim, inequivocamente, é um dos vídeos mais claros de contato. Não podemos chamar isso aí de luzinha, né? São um objeto de grandes proporções, passando relativamente próximo. Então é isso aí, pessoal. Não poderia deixar de fazer um update exclusivo com esse acontecimento, né? São vários objetos anômalos nessa missão. E eu ainda quero ver o vídeo na íntegra, ver o que mais pode se encontrar. Isso aí.
Building, we have friends and family gathered there for final goodbyes prior to liftoff with our astronauts.
And that's a very different thing to the shuttle days. The last time we saw our families would have been at what we call the wave across the ditch, you know, the day before launch. And typically for shuttle launches, you would have employees and, you know, people that would come out to wish us well. I think it's a very special thing that the crew's families get that up close and personal right before they get into the crew transport vehicles to the pad.
You notice everyone keeping as a safe distance here, but that distance would be enforced regardless of whether COVID-19 was a factor in what's going on. That distance is maintained regardless.
I can't get a good read at the license plate this time, but I remember for Demo 2 they said ISS bound.
Yeah, that's good.
I think another one might say later Earth.
This is Core on countdown 1 for timeline. The crew is departing for the pad on schedule.
All right, so we just heard the call out from the core that the crew is departing for the pad, and they are right on schedule. Again, they are leaving the Neil Armstrong Operations and Checkout Building, now beginning a 20-minute ride, 20 minutes or so across NASA's Kennedy Space Center. They're going to drive right behind where we're sitting. We can't wait for that. And out to Launch Pad 39A. Okay, and here's our first look at that level where they come out of the elevator. Now they're going to make their way around because they have a handful of stairs to climb to get up to the level where the crew access arm is. That's that long suspended walkway. So here they go up the steps.
Oh, look how beautiful.
It's been a long time since I've had the privilege of being up there and seeing that view up in person, but it is just, words don't do it justice.
Yeah.
Okay, and so this will be Victor and Soichi now approaching the pad. So Mike and Shannon got a head start. Victor and Soichi are making their way to the elevator now. I wonder if they're going to stop and
they got to
strain, or maybe they've already done that to get a look up. And you know, we're having a lot of fun here. We know the crew is having a blast. There they are. I knew they were going to do it. Here's a look inside the crew access arm from the inside.
I love this shot. Yeah. You know, when this was being designed, it was definitely a forward-thinking design that we went with. We really wanted it to encapsulate the experience of the next era of spaceflight, really wanting to make it look futuristic, as with the suits and the capsule itself. We now see Shannon adding her signature to the wall. So in keeping with tradition, we painted this room white, and the advanced team, once again, I'll talk about them, part of their responsibility, also making sure that there's a Sharpie on hand so that crew members can add their names to our signature wall. Bob and Doug did this prior to their flight, and I love that this is really the last thing you do before you get in our spaceship. I just love that there's an opportunity, and I'm really looking forward to seeing the list of names grow over time.
Hi. We feel like he's watching us.
You know, it's hard to see in that shot, but I'm very happy to say that we got blue skies and a couple of puffy white clouds working with us. So while it might look a little overcast on the screen, we're pretty happy with what we've got at the moment.
And you can see the little shadows of them moving along through the windows into the white room. Almost there.
I love this view inside Crew Dragon, and as you saw, there are 4 seats configured right now, and they're numbered 1 to 4 from right to left when you're looking at the seats. Mike Hopkins is in seat 2, that's the commander's seat, and then Victor Glover will be beside him in seat 3. That for Crew Dragon is the pilot seat. Soichi Noguchi is in seat 1, and Shannon Walker is in seat 4.
Once they're all finished getting buckled in, those seats will also rotate into launch position. Right now, it does look like they're a little further away from those display panels, but once they rotate backwards, those display panels will be right in front of them and easy to access.
Now we're coming up on T-minus 47 minutes, and the SpaceX team is finishing up their go, no, go polls. We're waiting for a few more people to give the electronic thumbs up so that then the SpaceX launch director can check that item off and then proceed into the remainder of the countdown, which will include propellant loading at T-minus 35 minutes.
Poll is complete, and the team is ready for crew access arm retract, propellant loading, and launch.
And it looks like the crew access arm has already begun to retract away. Just a beautiful sight.
So this is one of the last major visual milestones that we have before launch.
Stage 1 fuel load is complete.
Okay, right on time, and a great view of Dragon sitting on top of the Falcon 9 as we're continuing to load liquid oxygen onto both the first and second stages. The RP-1 kerosene fuel is now completely loaded on both Stage 1 and Stage 2. All continues to go well, just under 6 minutes to launch.
Dragon is in configure for terminal count. Dragon is on internal power. Falcon 9 propellant tanks are pressurizing for Strombeck retract.
And as you can hear those sounds, like Soichi Noguchi said, the vehicle is alive.
Dragon to countdown. FTS is armed. Falcon 9 is a startup and is now controlling.
50 seconds now until liftoff. That FTS you heard is flight termination.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
SpaceX, this is Resilient. Roger, go.
Go for launch, and at 37 seconds, the International Space Station flying over Kennedy Space Center.
All for one, Crew 1 for all.
Crew Dragon poised to go catch it. Seconds till liftoff.
T-minus 15 seconds. Falcon 9 is configured for flight. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
separation for max Q, which is maximum aerodynamic pressure.
Stage 1, throttle down.
There's that call out for throttle down.
Power and telemetry continue to be nominal for the vehicle, now traveling at 262 meters per second.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
There's that call out. The Falcon 9 is supersonic, and we will be passing through max Q here shortly, the largest structural load during ascent.
Max Q.
There's that call out. That Falcon has passed through max Q.
1 Bravo.
And we've just entered Stage 1 Bravo abort mode. That's going to take them through the end of the first stage burning just before second stage activates off the coast of North Carolina. T plus 1 minute and 40 seconds into flight. Dragon and Falcon 9 traveling 709 meters per second. That call that MVAC chill is underway, the Merlin vacuum engine.
Now with the call out of MVAC chill-in, similar to what we saw in the first stage Merlin engines, the second stage engine being prepared for its ignition coming up in just over 30 seconds from now. We're a half a minute away from 3 quick events in rapid succession. We're going to get main engine cut off. The 9 Merlin engines will throttle down and then shut down. We're going to get stage separation.
Stage 1, throttle down.
And then ignition of the second stage engine. We've begun the throttle down in preparation for stage separation.
And we have
2 Alpha.
stage separation confirmed.
And you see that stage separation has confirmed. There goes that MVAC engine. Stage 2. Crew 1 is now on their way to the International Space Station. On the right side of your screen, you see Stage 2 continuing to burn. Over on the left-hand side is Stage 1 preparing for its return to Earth.
And we've got ignition of the entry burn, center engine, followed by the other 2 restart engines. First stage now getting ready to re-enter the Earth's atmosphere. This is about a 29-second burn, and it's designed to slow the vehicle way down. We're going to shed about 70% of the velocity of that dropping first stage by the time this landing burn completes.
MVAC shut down.
And we've got shutdown of the second stage engine on time.
Dragon, SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion. Launch escape system is disarmed.
And SpaceX copies.
And Leah, the words we like to hear, a nominal orbit insertion.
That's right, John. Nominal orbit insertion, as we mentioned, Stage 2. Oh, looks like some action on Stage 1. And I believe we've had a touchdown on the drone ship.
We've got Stage 1 has touched down on the drone ship in the Atlantic Ocean. But now the more important news, second stage is in orbit, right where we want, right on time, and we're getting ready for our next major activity, which will be Dragon spacecraft separation. Now currently on the second stage, we are essentially venting pressure, purging the engine out, making sure everything is quiet in preparation.
Take a look. That's inside Crew Dragon right now. Our Crew 1 crew now coasting in low Earth orbit, still attached to that second stage. In just a couple of minutes, we should see that second stage separate, and Crew Dragon will be flying free. And separation confirmed. You can see that second stage departing. Crew Dragon leaving it behind.
Separation confirmed.
Confirmation from teams on the ground and the crew. You can see them monitoring those 3 display panels, monitoring their journey to the International Space Station and where they are in the world right now, or over the world, I should say.
And Dragon SpaceX, just for timeline awareness, burn is in about just under 1 minute.
And copy that. We see it starts in 40 seconds. And just for your awareness, both MS-1 and pilot are out of their suits, and they're getting them strapped into their seats this time.
Copy all.
Phase burn has begun. We are a minute underway, so good news there. And it should last about 9.5 minutes, raising the perigee, or the lowest point of Dragon's current orbit, to a higher altitude.
And as you can see live, they have now revealed to us the 0G indicator, and it looked like a little baby Yoda.
Yeah, so I'm wondering if we might hear a little bit more about that later, that choice, but did look like another crew member floating around with them.
Yeah, very cool to see them as they're actually coasting to the International Space Station.
Yeah, first 4-person capsule that has ever flown, and so that's another big first for the mission. This is a view over the shoulder of our commander, Mike Hopkins, and pilot, Victor Glover, taking a look at some of the systems aboard Crew Dragon. Pretty neat to see them interacting with those touch screens.
We've got Baby Yoda on board trying to take a seat right now, I guess.
I know, I think that's Victor Glover's seat, so hope he doesn't mind.
Maybe Baby Yoda's trying to pilot the vehicle. But some pretty cool views. The crew members are hanging out, quite literally, as they coast to the International Space Station.
Dragon SpaceX, 2 items for TCS configuration.
And go ahead for TCS config.
Dragon, for the TCS Loop Bravo caution, this alert was due to configuring the warmer mixing mode. We were slightly too cold prior to that transition. We plan to clear the alarm status and bring both loops back to the nominal configuration.
Okay, we copy. It was a little too cold when you did the transition, and you'll be clearing the alerts and get back to the nominal status.
Good words, Dragon. And secondly, we were able to recover the prop line heaters and are back to full fault tolerance.
That is excellent news. Good to hear. Back to full fault tolerance for the prop manifold heaters.
And good words.
To recap what we saw earlier, SpaceX mission operators and the engineering team worked through a Dragon propulsion line heater high resistance issue. It initially caused 3 of 4 heaters in one quadrant aboard Crew Dragon to be powered down. It was determined to be caused by a conservatively set limit too close to nominal values. That limit was adjusted. All 4 heaters are now powered on and functioning nominally. Propellant temperatures never dipped dipped below those nominal expected temperatures, and they were well above safe limits. So Crew Dragon continues its journey to the International Space Station, running smoothly, and we are still standing by, still covering this mission, but great news for now that those issues have been recovered and our crew continues its journey.
What you just saw there was a recap of the Crew-1 mission so far, and I gotta say, just watching that launch over again, it still gives me the chills. Everything went, very smoothly through that ascent into orbit. You heard at the very end, the teams were able to troubleshoot a couple of items. They have since been resolved. We executed that first of 5 major burns, the phase burn. And the crew right now is sleeping, towards the end of which will be a few more burns, a boost burn and a close co-elliptic burn. That'll get us incrementally higher towards the space station.
Right, so we're about 1 hour into that 8-hour sleep period. About 1 hour from the end of that period, we'll have our next burn, and then right at the wake-up time, within a few minutes, we'll have another burn as well. So we're going to keep on providing coverage, answer your social media questions. Please stick around. There's a lot more exciting stuff to go while the crew is resting and getting ready for a big day.
We're continuing our coverage of the crew mission. 4 astronauts are now headed to the International Space Station. The crew right now, it's 2:30 a.m. Pacific time. They've been in a sleep period for an hour officially now, maybe time before that they actually had to go to sleep, and they'll be resting for at least the next 7 hours or so until they wake up at about a little after 9 a.m. It's a lot of sleep, but started early for our crew members. About 4 hours prior to launch on Sunday, the crew completed their final medical checks before joining the SpaceX team to get into their spacesuits. After suit up in the NASA Operations and Checkout building, the crew walked out, waving for some final farewells to their family and friends waiting outside. Next destination for the crew was the launch pad. It was about a 20-minute Tesla ride to Pad 39A, where the Falcon 9 and Crew Dragon spacecraft were waiting for them. 2.5 hours prior to launch, the crew ingressed or entered the Crew Dragon spacecraft, walking out over the crew access arm and getting a last look out of those windows at Florida's Space Coast before heading into the White Room and finally the spacecraft. 40 minutes prior to launch, the crew access arm retracted, and at T-minus 35 minutes before liftoff, the launch escape system was armed, allowing the Crew Dragon to escape the Falcon 9 on the launch pad or upon descent, should there be any anomaly with the vehicle, but it was not needed as we saw a smooth ride into launch, and then with 35 minutes to go, propellant loading began, filling the fuel tanks for those 9 Merlin M1D engines. And then just 5 minutes before launch, Dragon entered terminal count, meaning its onboard computers took control of the vehicle.
And at 7:27 p.m. Eastern Time, 4:27 p.m. Pacific, the 9 Merlin M1D engines ignited and Falcon 9 lifted off from Space Launch Complex 39A, marking the second time humans have ridden Dragon into orbit. With Falcon 9 first stage at its full power, our crew began their journey to the International Space Station. And just after the T+9 minute mark, the first stage of Falcon 9 landed on the autonomous spaceport drone ship stationed out in the Atlantic Ocean. And a couple minutes after that, we had the spacecraft separation occur, where we saw the Dragon capsule finally flying free.
About 45 minutes after liftoff, Dragon executed the phase burn, the first of 5 major burns required to raise Dragon's orbit and position it for approach to the International Space Station. Our initial orbit after Dragon separated from Falcon 9 was 210 kilometers by 190 kilometers. Those values represent the orbit apogee, or the highest point over the Earth, and the perigee, or the lowest point. That means the orbit isn't a perfect circle. We're going to see Dragon raise its orbit using the Draco thrusters over the coming hours as it chases down the space station. It has been a busy day for the crew so far.
Absolutely. And speaking of crew, let's take a moment and learn a little more about each of the 4 crew members. Starting off, this will be the second space flight for Crew Dragon Commander Mike Hopkins, a U.S. Air Force colonel. Here's more about the Missouri native who's already logged 166 days in space.
Sitting on the launch pad is definitely a moment that you're always thinking about, right? That's one of the more critical phases of the flight, as you can imagine. You're very focused in, right? It can be a very emotional time. You're kind of pinching yourself because it's hard to believe that you're finally there.
Born in Lebanon, Missouri, he is an Air Force colonel and a flight test engineer. He was selected as an astronaut in 2009. He spent 166 days on the International Space Station, introducing NASA astronaut Mike Hopkins.
You know, it's funny. I mean, a lot of times people think of the dream of being an astronaut as something that a kid would have. And I remember when my wife and I first started dating at the University of Illinois, and I told her that I wanted to be an astronaut, she laughed at me and kind of said, "Are you serious?" But at the same time, she stuck with me throughout the years, and to have that dream come true is pretty amazing.
My role on the Crew Dragon itself as part of Crew-1 is the commander of the vehicle. We'll be launching to the International Space Station, and we're going to be doing a long-duration mission, a standard long-duration mission. One of the nice things about being on board the International Space Station is you have a lot of connectivity, believe it or not, with your family. And so I was able to call just about every day. My family means everything to me. It is the most important part of my life. My wife, Julie, my son, Ryan, my son, Lucas, they are just such a huge part of this whole endeavor. You know, without family, it just wouldn't be as meaningful. The partnership that we have right now with SpaceX, it's pretty powerful. They bring a lot to the table. NASA brings a lot to the table. We've got a ton of experience in human spaceflight. When you're out there on a day-to-day basis and you're interacting with their engineers and you're interacting with their trainers and you're interacting with the people that are actually building the rockets and building the capsule itself, you really get to establish the relationships, the personal relationships. It's not just about the astronauts that are on board, but it's about the entire team at NASA and SpaceX that it's taken to launch this Crew-1 vehicle, and we couldn't do our job without them.
Seated right next to Mike Hopkins in the Crew Dragon is the spacecraft's pilot, Victor Glover, who has flown 40 different types of aircraft for a total of more than 3,000 hours, which helped him prepare for this mission, piloting his first flight to space. Here's more about the U.S. Navy commander and California native.
I saw a shuttle launch when I was in elementary school, and I thought I really want to fly that. And that's where it began.
He is a Navy commander, a naval aviator, and a test pilot. He was selected as an astronaut in 2013. This is his first space flight, introducing NASA astronaut Victor Glover.
First and foremost, I'm just grateful to God and to my family. To work and live in space is just a humbling and amazing blessing in and of itself. This is a test pilot's dream. Flying has been such an important part of my professional life, and I love to do it. 64,000 feet. That's the highest up I've ever been above the ground. And so to get to a point beyond that, that'll be a little special moment. I'm a rookie astronaut. I'm the pilot and going to be learning the ropes from a very experienced crew. Trying to balance that, enjoying and living in the moment, but also managing the responsibilities to make sure that we get to space safely. I'm looking forward to that juxtaposition of emotion, I think.
Tell me about how you ended up